tonight on GamePlan. The Saints in search of their 4th straight win after celebrating their 3rd straight NFC South title. But now the focus shifts to their 2nd straight NFC #1 seed. The first step towards that is a 49ers team that has been in front of the pack all season long.
And here is Tevin Coleman for the burst. Coleman racing to the end zone.
We're breaking down every angle of the matchup as Sean Fazan examines the film on a rookie's ever-increasing importance, and Jeff Duncan stops by to discuss the shortcomings the black and gold had displayed recently. Plus, it's crunch time in fantasy football, and Chris Hagan's advice could be the difference between bragging rights and shame. Game Plan starts right now.
From Fox 8 Sports, this is Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership. And Law Tigers, Louisiana's motorcycle lawyers.
It's the 4th quarter of the season, and their biggest challenge awaits them Sunday. Saints, San Fran, Superdome. Welcome to Game Plan. He's Juan Kincaid. I'm Sean Fazan.
This game has been circled on the calendar for a while now, and now it's here. A playoff atmosphere will come to the Dome a month early, and this is expected to be a 15-round heavyweight bout. Last team standing wins.
Every game from here on out is big, right? You get to this time of year and you get to the position that we're in. Every game's big. Every game is meaningful. Listen, we understand the playoff implications as a result of this game, But if you go in with that mindset every week, if you play with that same mindset, it's like you're getting ready for the Super Bowl every week. It's like you're getting ready for that big game, that meaningful game each week. So if you prepare that way, if you believe that in your heart, then when you step out there on Sunday, you know that you've done everything you can to put yourself in the best position to win. That's all you can do.
Here's today's injury report. Limited to Ron Armstead, Zach Line. That's good news. Andrews Pete, A.J. Klein, Kiko Alonso, those 3 guys missed today's workout. Meanwhile, the Saints reached that point of the season where every game matters.
The Saints know what's at stake, and they know exactly who they're up against. Think San Francisco 49ers, think defense. They sit at the top of the league in pass defense and #1 in total defense. And it all starts up front, where Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa, DeForest Buckner, and Dee Ford make up a formidable front 4.
Yeah, they've been pretty dominant. Well, first off, they have really good players. So across the board, and there's no weak links. They're all very, very good players, very talented, big, strong, physical, very well coached. Just very sound in everything that they do. So, the statistics reflect it. The numbers reflect it. The wins reflect it. They're a stout group.
On the back end, Richard Sherman leads the secondary and leads the team with 3 interceptions. Offensively, it's very much a Shanahan offense. A lot of zone blocking and stretch running plays. And the 3-headed monster at running back of Matt Breida, Tevin Coleman, and Raheem Mostert. They're second in the league behind only Baltimore in rushing offense.
Number 1, their scheme is fantastic, and it matches their skill set. The offensive line and how they target their landmarks. They're guys that are athletic, and I would say that the trait that every one of these backs has is their home run speed. So they're gonna stress you horizontally and put the foot in the ground, and you're going to have to be able to really handle this wide zone and then the auxiliary runs that come from it. But they're running it as well as anyone.
And, of course, their trigger man is quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, whose top target is tight end George Kittle. Jimmy G is completing 69% of his passes with 21 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. It all adds up to one of the most complete teams in football, according to head coach Sean Payton.
These guys, I'm telling you, they're just when you watch this team play, defensively and offensively, all right, and in the kicking game, there's balanced team and a team that plays extremely well in all 3 phases. And that's why they're sitting with the record they have.
Remember now, Garoppolo is a Sean Payton guy. There was a lot of talk back in the 2014 draft that Payton wanted to take him out of Eastern Illinois.
He knows Eastern Illinois. Such a small school that's had a big imprint on the NFL with both players and coaches. For the majority of the season, though, the 49ers were seen as not only the best team in the NFC, but the entire NFL. Their defense is full of a bunch of studs, that's ranked at or near the top of the league in a bunch of categories, and their solid yet balanced offense has a head coach in Kyle Shanahan, who's known for his offensive prowess that powered the Falcons to a Super Bowl. And he knows he'll have quite the challenge against the Black and Gold's defense.
I mean, they're a very good defense. They got a lot of good players. I haven't played them for a couple years, and they've gotten only a lot better. Just the personnel that they added, the guys that they've had have gotten a lot better, just maturing a little bit. And, and Dennis Allen's done it for a long time. He's one of the best in the business at what he does. Has a lot of scheme that he can put in that's extremely sound. They play hard. So it's one of the better defenses we're going to face this year.
And as good as the Niners have been this season, now's not the time for them to put together any kind of a losing streak.
Well, look, unlike the NFC South, the NFC West is one of the best divisions in football.
You're right. It is one of the best in the league. 3 teams could come out of there with the Rams lurking in the 7th spot, just a game behind the Vikings for the final wild card spot. And the Niners' final 2 games of the season, hosting the Rams and at Seattle. So still a lot to be determined.
Hopefully, the Saints can spoil their NFC West party. Still to come on Game Plan, to the film room we go, where we break down how one Saints rookie's football instincts led to a big play against Atlanta. Stay with us. And you can have Saints Talk on demand with a Fox 8 Overtime podcast. We just released our weekly preview of the weekend ahead in South Louisiana football for the pros, college, and prep. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. You can find our podcast on fox8live.com, Final Play app, and wherever you listen to your podcasts.
You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership. And Law Tigers, Louisiana's motorcycle lawyers.
We come back in the Game Plan needing to give some much-deserved recognition to Cameron Jordan. The defensive end was tabbed the NFC's Defensive Player of the Week today after a career-best 4-sack performance in Atlanta on Thanksgiving night. We shouldn't be surprised that that performance came against Matt Ryan on a Thursday night. He sacked him 18 times over his career. And Jordan has 15.5 sacks in 10 career Thursday night games. He balls during the midweek. One of the Saints' 3 takeaways against the Falcons came on an interception from rookie C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
And Juan, it was simply a matter of GJ making an incredible individual effort. And it's the subject of tonight's film study.
Fazan's Film Breakdown is brought to you by GMC. See your local GMC dealer.
The Saints are in their dime package of 3 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 6 defensive backs to counter the Falcons' 4 wide receiver set. It's 3rd and 15, so the Saints have 2 safeties back. But this is not a cover 2 zone. While the safeties are back deep, the 4 lined up on receivers are in man coverage. On the snap, Matt Ryan reads the coverage and wants Russell Gage on the dig route on P.J. Williams right at the sticks. It's a tight window throw, but a completion would have been possible if not for GJ's awareness. He's on the opposite side trailing Justin Hardy, who's running a slant, but he keeps his eyes on Ryan, and Ryan doesn't even look his way. And when he fires the pass, Gardner-Johnson moves off his man and undercuts the throw and makes the interception. It's not his responsibility, but his football instincts took over, and the Saints benefited.
Gardner-Johnson has really come into his own. His snap count has increased each week, and with plays like that, it should only keep going up.
And we talk about the seamless transition that rookie Eric McCoy, the center, has done with adapting to the NFL. Well, it hasn't looked like a challenge for Gardner-Johnson either, Sean. He has looked and played the part since day one. Perhaps no coincidence that both played their college ball in the SEC. Meanwhile, one of the lasting impressions from the Saints Thursday night game in Atlanta and that win, how the game ended, with the Saints special teams units struggling to recover onside kicks. Sean Payton said it was embarrassing. An embarrassing performance by that unit, and he vowed to get it fixed this week. Payton said it's pretty clear where those breakdowns happened.
Yes, I think 2 or 3 things. Number 1, alignment, and then assignment. We're misaligned on 2 of them. Assignment-wise, we don't execute, and you have what you have. So we've got to work more on that. We're gonna have to fix that. Obviously, that'll cost you a game, and almost cost us a game the other day. So we'll do whatever it takes to get that corrected and look closely at what we're doing and who's doing it.
And when you think back to training camp and how much time the Saints spent on special teams, it was just strange to see them struggling as much as they did against the Falcons. They preached special teams so much in training camp.
Yeah, and look, the onside kick issue, hopefully that gets resolved. Still to come on Game Plan, what is the biggest key to a Saints victory Sunday? Well, Jeff Duncan joins us in studio to share his thoughts on the topic next.
You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership. And Law Tigers, Louisiana's motorcycle lawyers.
I mean, you don't have the luxury of being able to drop one. I mean, particularly this next one, you have to have it against San Francisco. And so you talk about the way that it's looking right now, you've got to have all four of them. Now, that may change as things continue to unfold, but for the Saints, they have to take care of their own business, and that starts with San Francisco.
Saints Hall of Famer Deuce McAllister will be with us Sunday morning at 10 a.m. to preview the game. Sunday night at 10:30 to wrap it all up. Come Monday, you can catch Deuce at 8 a.m., 5 p.m., and 10:35. All of that right here on Fox 8. Of course, every week joined by Jeff Duncan from The Athletic and obviously here at Fox 8. Pretty simple matchup this week. 10 and 2 teams, a lot on the line. I mean, it's pretty simplified as you go into this weekend's game.
Yeah, huge game, huge stakes on the line. It doesn't get much better than this for a regular season football game. I don't think there's going to be any motivation needed for anybody involved, the coaching staff, players involved. And I don't know about you guys, but I can't remember the Saints losing a big game like this at home. I mean, the only one was the NFC Championship game. We know what happened there. But for these kind of matchups with everything on the line in this Superdome, when that crowd is amped, it's very difficult to beat New Orleans.
Yeah, it kind of fills in with the theme that you and I have been talking about really since training camp. Very businesslike, not much needs to be said. These are the types of games that when last season ended, the NFC Championship game, the controversy that ensued, to get back to this moment, you had to win games like this. They're coming Sunday. There is nothing trickery about the San Francisco 49ers. They do what they do. The Saints do what they do, and may the best team win.
So you think back to how the Ravens played against San Fran last week. A lot of Lamar Jackson, a lot of the read option. In fact, Deuce McAllister said he wouldn't be surprised if Taysom gets more touches in this game because that's what he does so well. The balance is you don't want to take the ball out of Drew Brees' hands too much.
But the threat is there with Taysom Hill, so obviously San Francisco has to prepare for that. They just prepare for Lamar Jackson. You know, they use Taysom a whole lot of different ways than just quarterback, unlike Lamar Jackson, obviously, in Baltimore. The offense runs through him. So very curious the balance here. They don't completely overhaul the offense. The Saints' offense has been one of the best in the NFL for quite a long time, but I do think Taysom Hill gets a bigger role this week.
If we're expecting more from Taysom, I would imagine the Niners, they aren't stupid. They're expecting more from Taysom as well.
Right. I'm sure Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator for San Francisco, one of the best in the league, he's going to have a plan for, and I think it helps that they played Baltimore the week before. But I think the way they'll use Taysom Hill in this game is the way they use him in most games. They'll see what works. If they put that package out there and it has success, we'll see more of it. But I don't think they're going to go in and say, look, we're going to use him 20 plays. I think it'll be a part of the package, like Sean said, in a small part. But if it's having success, we'll see more of it.
So what you're saying, it all comes down to the trenches. I mean, whoever wins that area will likely win this game.
Both sides of the ball, because San Francisco has a very unique offense, and the way they do it, you know what you're going to get. It's that Mike Shanahan outside zone blocking scheme. They run a lot of bootlegs off of it. If you win the line of scrimmage, you can really shut down the 49ers offense, but it's much easier said than done, let's put it that way.
And look, we've talked all year about how dominant the Saints' offensive and defensive lines have been, how improved they are, and the depth there as well. This is going to be the test. This is the litmus test for that group. I think they're going to be embrace this challenge of going against the San Francisco 49ers, and whoever wins the ground game on both sides of the ball is going to win this game.
Is it stupid to think that this may be a game where you see Latavius Murray and Taysom Hill having more carries than Alvin Kamara?
I don't know about that, because I think they want to get Alvin Kamara going. And I know what you're saying, bigger bodies, pounding the ball physically. They've got to get Alvin Kamara back to becoming the explosive playmaker he was earlier in the year. He's got one touchdown rushing, one touchdown receiving, and he's one of the best playmakers in the league. and he is kind of showing a little discouragement during games, frankly. I think they want to get him the ball more, whether that's running, passing, whatever.
I was going to say that, and you're right. There's been a few moments of frustration, but with Alvin Kamara, it's about the touches, not necessarily the carries. I could certainly see a scenario where Latavius Murray, if he's involved, he kind of gets rolling downhill. Maybe he ends up with more carries than Alvin Kamara, but I still think the touches, the majority will go to Alvin Kamara.
I want to ask you guys this and finish up on this. What's the better approach for the Saints? Live in the moment or don't get caught up in the moment when this game kicks off gets up to kicking off on Sunday?
Well, I'm going to hedge on you. I think they've got to do a little of both. They've got to have the bigger picture in mind. But the Saints, the things we've talked about all year long that have kind of hurt this team, focus in some games, letting up on the gas pedal, penalties, I don't think that's going to be an issue in this game at all. I think we're going to see the Saints at their potential in this game. They know what's on the line. They rise to the occasion. The coaching staff will have a great game plan. And I expect them to win this game because of all the things that we've talked about all year long that have kind of held them back. Won't be a factor in this game at all. Focus, all that.
Yeah, look, I thought the tone from the locker room was pretty good today. Everyone understood what was at hand. You didn't really need to, it didn't take a rocket science to figure that out. It's a very veteran team. They've played a lot of football, a lot of winning football. They understand what these games mean. So they've been through it before. So I think they have the right mindset heading into this game.
One thing that Sean Payton has touched on a number of times this season, and surprisingly because he's a masterful play call, is that there have been times where he's just made the wrong call and called himself out on it in the post-game press conference. How big of a game is this for him going up against Kyle Shanahan, making the right play calls against one of the best defenses in the league?
No, I think it's crucial. I think so much of the Saints' offense relies on the play calling ability of Sean Payton and the execution of that offense based on the play call. So if he's off, yeah, it does filter down to their offense.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about Sean Payton. He will own a mistake, own a bad play call. I think that goes a long way in the locker room with his players, taking that accountability. I don't think we're going to have too many bad play calls from him this week. He's going to be at his best.
We sure hope so. That's Jeff Duncan from The Athletic and Fox 8. Jeff, thank you once again. We appreciate it. Up next, it's getting real serious in fantasy football because more money is on the line. Chris Hagan helps you get closer to getting paid with his extra point. Next.
You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership. And Law Tigers, Louisiana's motorcycle lawyers.
Time now for keys to the game, and how about getting to Garoppolo? In his first full and healthy season with Kyle Shanahan, he's been Mr. Reliable, but in Week 10, Seattle's defense really got after him. Seattle sacked him 5 times and hit him another 5 times, both of which were more than double his season-long average. As a result, Garoppolo posted his lowest completion percentage on the year, and his quarterback rating was 35 points lower than it has been for the entire campaign.
The Keys to the Game is sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers in the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership.
It's late in the season, and making the right roster move on your fantasy football team is imperative.
But deciphering right from wrong isn't always easy. Fortunately, Chris Hagan is here to help guide you through the process in this week's Extra Point.
If you made the fantasy football playoffs, congrats. And if not, there's always next year. But either way, there are lessons to be learned at this point of the season. And now more than ever, it's crucial that you make the right decisions, like not benching Kenny Golladay, ever. After Week 13's results, there might have been some performances that cause you to worry, but I'm here to tell you which ones should concern you, which ones should not, and which players to hit the panic button on and drop if you need to. Let's start with the guys I'm not too worried about. Seattle running back Chris Carson. If you watched Monday night's game against Minnesota, it definitely felt like Rashad Penny was cutting into Carson's upside. What hurt most were the goal line snaps that Carson wasn't on the field for after he scored the game's first touchdown. However, he and his role are just fine. Carson still carried the ball 23 times to Penny's 15 and averaged nearly 4.5 yards per run. Have no fear going forward. Even if Penny does get 10 or so carries, Carson is still the top dog, especially in close games. I'm also not overly concerned with running back Ezekiel Elliott against the Bears defense that's good on paper. They're 7th best in the league when it comes to yards given up on the ground, but we've seen them exposed there by strong running teams like the Saints and even the Eagles. I could see Ezekiel Elliott having a strong day in a game that the Cowboys are desperate to win. At tight end, I've also seen slight concern for guys like Zach Ertz and Hunter Henry, who both had low outputs last week. But at tight end, the most scarce position in fantasy football, you don't get much better than those two. So don't overthink it. Start them wherever you can. The next group is one that I am a little bit more concerned over. 3 running backs come to mind. First, Green Bay's Aaron Jones. At one point this season, it was clear that he was the first option. But last week, he had just 1 more touch than Jamal Williams, and Williams was far more productive. It's made the position for both of them very unpredictable and unreliable, so start them at your own risk. James Conner is another concern, especially health-wise. We've seen him exit several games early, and even if he plays, ideally he's good to go, but still, you never know. But that said, against Arizona's defense, he's a must-start if he's active. Conner remains the offense's best weapon, which says more about the team than it does him. Then there's Sony Michel of the Patriots. New England was already unpredictable enough with guys like Rex Burkhead in the mix getting carries. But last week against the Texans, James White was more than just a pass-catching back and took 14 carries to Michel's 10, which isn't a good sign for Michel, who was already extremely touchdown dependent. You can justify starting Michel this week against the Chiefs, but I don't advise it if you have better options. Finally, I'm hitting the panic button on 49ers running back Tevin Coleman. He was severely behind Raheem Mostert in snaps against the Ravens and hasn't been an effective offensive weapon in weeks, and that was without Matt Breida playing. The 49ers backfield has been crowded all year, but now that Coleman seems to be a third option, second at best, I'd move him to the bench. I'd do the same for Rams receiver Brandon Cooks and drop him if need be. Even around his injuries, he hasn't been nearly as productive as years past. Last week, it was the Robert Woods show, and every other week, it's the Cooper Kupp show. Even Josh Reynolds had twice as many targets and catches as Cooks a week ago. There's nothing wrong with moving on if it makes your fantasy team better during the most important part of the season. Reporting for Game Plan, I'm Chris Hagan.
Our coverage certainly doesn't stop here. Lots more football on Fox 8 this week. Tomorrow night, Cowboys and Bears. Interesting one there. After Fox 8's late news, we'll have a special previewing of LSU's SEC championship game in Atlanta against Georgia. Friday, we switch to high school gridiron football for Fox 8 Football Friday at 10:35. Sunday morning, wake up with us. Fox 8 Live tailgate at 10 a.m. Get you ready for the kickoff at high noon. Our reports begin on Fox 8 News at 9, leading up to the final play at 10:30.
Look at all those shows. And of course, you can always get in touch with us using the Final Word feature on the Final Play app. That'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for watching Game Plan. And thanks to everyone here at Fox 8 for their contributions. Our next newscast is at 4:30 in the morning. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
From Fox 8 Sports, this has been Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers and the Ford F-Series, celebrating 42 years of truck leadership. And Law Tigers, Louisiana's motorcycle lawyers.